Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I'm doing my July wrap-up. As you may have noticed, I have not been posting on my channel for about 3 weeks and I was called out sort of by my sister. I'm not really sure what happened. I just went into kind of one of those moods where I didn't really want to do anything, and that included booktube. So I just didn't, and then it was 3 weeks later and here we are. But I'm back. I'm not going to do an August TBR because it is August 18th and that just seems dumb. But obviously at the end of the month I will let you know what books I read. So in July, it was still a bit of a busy month, and then I had to recuperate from the 2 months I had where I didn't have any weekends to myself, so I only read 5 books. That said, I'm fairly happy with the books that I read. Another note, I utterly failed at Medievalathon and Booktubeathon. In Booktubeathon I read all of 1 book, which I will talk about in a minute. I did go to a readathon in Minneapolis though, and that was really fun. As far as Medievalathon goes, I think I maybe read 1 book, potentially 2 that could maybe fit the challenges, but suffice to say I utterly failed in all readathons I participated in July. Now let's get into the 5 books I actually managed to read. We will start with the first one, which is Morningstar by Pierce Brown. This is the 3rd book in the first Red Rising trilogy, and then it continues and Dark Age came out the 31st. I just finished Iron Gold, so that'll be my August wrap-up, and I'm working on Dark Age because I failed utterly at following Pierre's schedule. It happens. But I did read Morningstar. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it better the second time around, but I also noticed a couple of things that I didn't notice the first go-round, as you do on rereads. So, loved it. I really like the ending, and I'm curious to see whether I like Dark Age, because having reread Iron Gold, I'm on the fence, we'll say, about whether I like where it's going or not. But enough said about that one. Next, I read Nocturna by Maya Motain. This is an adult fantasy, or at least I think it's adult. It might be YA and I'm misclassifying it, but that's not the point. Point is, this is a fantasy with a face shifter and a prince who has another magical power. They are in the fantasy version of ancient/medieval Spain, and at one point they were taken over by the ancient/medieval version of England, which I thought was just great. I did enjoy this book. I think I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. There were a couple things that really drove me a little bit nuts. The biggest one being the use of the word maldito, which is damn in English, and it was overused. It did not need to be in half of the sentences that it was, and it really took you out of the story. That said, I did enjoy Maya Motain's writing otherwise. I think her plot was really fun. I'm loving the cover as well. So the characters were good. It was fun to watch them grow and see where they went with what they did. Loved that. Predominantly that one word though, it needed to be reworked so that it didn't take you out of the story as much. The one book I did manage to read for Booktubeathon was One Dead Spy. Reading Rush, that's what it's called. Not Booktubeathon, Reading Rush. One Dead Spy by Nathan Hale. This is the first in his series of historical graphic novels. Well, they're not novels, they're historical whatever. They're pictures, they're historical, and they're funny. That's all I got. Loved this one as well. This covered reading a book in the same spot and reading an author's first book, because as far as I'm aware, this is his first book. This sets the stage for Nathan Hale when he's about to be hanged on the gallows, as they did to spies. And suddenly a history book comes and swallows him up, and then he postpones his inevitable death by hanging, by telling his executioner and it's not lobsterback because that's not the right, redcoat, there we go, that's the official term, redcoat, that is their stories about history, and that's how we get all of these. So he's got one about the Donner Dinner Party, well that's the title of the book, it's about the Donners who, froze to death, and he's got one on he's got one called Big Bad Ironclad, which is about the ironclad ships in the Civil War. He's got one about World War I, he's got one about the Alamo, etc. I think they're really funny. Each of them has their own color scheme, so for example this one is red. They are also very snarky because they're told in a narration, sort of a way, so it's not just a straight up story. I really like the animation, the images. I cannot speak English today, forgive me. But I really liked it. I thought this was a great way to start it. It explained everything, and it's ridiculous, but it's also historical, and it's a really easy, accessible way to get history, so I gave it a 5 out of 5. The last two books, one of which I think might have qualified for Medievalathon, are The Dragon's Price, which has a sword on it, which was a challenge for Medievalathon, and The Dragon's Curse, both by Bethany Wiggins. They are books 1 and 2 of the series. It is a trilogy, and the third one comes out in September. I only had the first one, so I went out and bought the second one pretty much instantly and read them both within a week because I liked them a lot. I didn't expect to. They sound completely corny. There is a girl whose family is in an alliance with another kingdom, and her family is sort of the traditional, what we call Western family. They live in a castle, they're very stoic and emotionally stunted, and then the other kingdom is, I think it's based on sort of Mongolian history. They are fantastic horse riders, they're fierce warriors, there's equality between the sexes, that kind of stuff. And so what we in the West would call Eastern. And first of all, I loved how that turned it on its head, because it doesn't portray the civilizations as unequal. It also portrays there's a prince in the Eastern, the Mongolian-esque culture, and so in his home, everything is open and warm and beautiful, and they like the princess, whereas in hers, everything is horrible and nasty and just awful. And I really enjoyed watching that because I thought it was funny. There is absolutely insta-love in here. You know exactly who the love interest is going to be within the first 10 pages of book number 1. They do get to know each other over about a week, and then they decide that they're just madly in love and will never leave each other, because that's what this is. So if you don't want insta-love in any form, do not read this series. However, yes, there is insta-love, yes, there are several different tropes, but that said, like I mentioned, the West versus East thing was really interesting to me and I loved it. Also, the dragons in these books are completely different from dragons that I've read before. Their treasures are not what we expect. The transference, they are called transference novels, and I will leave that up to you if you want to read them, but I thought that was a fascinating way to do it. I also really enjoyed the fact that it's on the girl, not the guy, to do things, and then all of a sudden it turns into this partnership. I don't know. Without spoiling, I really enjoyed this series, and I gave them, I think, 4.5 to 5 stars. I don't remember exactly, but I really, really liked them. My one complaint was that the first one was a little short, and the insta-love was, like I said, instant. But once you get going into the story, it felt a lot better. So definitely enjoyed these. I'm sorry I disappeared for 3 weeks, but I hope you enjoyed my July wrap-up, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!